Maskani, everyone. This is Professor Rahh, uh, Professor Emeritus, California State University of Long Beach, former city councilman for the city of Compton, former Compton College Board of Trustees, and former Compton Unified School District Board of Trustees. Professor Emeritus, California State University of Long Beach, Africana Studies Department. I just want to welcome all of you to the Conscious Corner, giving praise and thanks to Brother Rashaki Maskani for providing us a platform on the Community Education Network to be able to have this Zoomcast where we discuss deep thinking and courageous thoughts with regards to the situations that we face as African people. Tonight we got a very distinguished guest who's going to be talking about a very challenging subject, mental health in the Black community, its issues and its challenges. And this is Dr. Cheree Monique Montgomery. She is a graduate of SC, graduated of where she graduated in education, and she graduated in liberal studies from Cal State Long Beach, and she's been a curriculum specialist for Rancho Cucamonga, principal for LA Unified, principal in Inglewood, and also a principal and a teacher and an educator throughout her life. Her mother is Elaine, and she's an educator also. And she comes from a distinguished family. Percy Anderson, and Senior, was a minister of Long Beach, was president of the NAACP, and single-handedly saw the completion of the monument for Martin Luther King by going in his own pocket to finish it because they had ran out of money. And a long-time activist in Long Beach, and her uncle, Brother Percy Anderson Jr., who's a federal judge, and as long as other family members are entrepreneurs, and she got 3 children, Jamal, who is working with veterans and homelessness, and as well as Jared, who's in Atlanta, an entrepreneur, got his own business and helping movie stars and actresses with regards to their dress and their makeup, as well as Brother Javion, who is an outstanding young man, but with some challenges that she'll probably discuss and talk about. So we want to welcome each and every one of you, Brother Ahid from out of Detroit. And they're doing it in Detroit, as well as the Motor City and Motown history. But this brother is very strong and active and aware of what's going on in the Black movement, as well as Brother Mashinda out of Louisiana, longtime activist, working with young people, adults, to help shape their mind. And he's a role model for them with regards to being an outstanding person and human being. And we want to also welcome Brother Rashaki Maskani, who's a strong-time activist and the one that envisioned this platform that we're discussing. So without further delay, I'm going to ask Dr. Cheree Montgomery, who is also my daughter, to give us a little background and a synopsis of what the issues that we face and the challenges we face as Black people dealing with mental health. So without further delay, Dr. Montgomery, go ahead.
Let's say it, and I say it out loud, is one of the things that we're dealing with right now is looking closely and deeply at Sonia Macy. That hit home for me because I think some things that may have been triggered by mental illness, not saying that not having the right support system and officers going into situations and being uninformed and hurting others. Because I've been on the other side of that, where my son has struggled with mental illness, and I had to, police have been called, and those results I could be the mother of Sonia. And just the impact that has made on the community. And sometimes we don't make notice to this, but there's many more of Sonia Macy's and things that deal with some mental health challenges. and that the police are called and they escalate or they wind up dying behind having a mental illness. And what we're looking at now, for me, is that my son is incarcerated for mental health challenges because there was an incident that occurred. And so he has been incarcerated for, I would say, almost, we're since November, trying to, at first it was a criminal case that I had to move into mental health court because of some actions he had in a group home. He had a fight with another person, and that person became injured. By that result, it was a result of him getting incarcerated, and we had to move him into mental health court. And so that has been a hard task for me, dealing with that. And to try to get him, because there's new programs out for people with mental illness, and it stems from them starting these diversion programs for people that struggle with mental illness. The system is so broken, and dealing with someone, a loved one that has a mental illness, when you look at it, it worries me because of how it's more so of a person that's dealing with psychosis, mood disorders, psychotic disorders, that when they're faced with police, what do you do? Because it is a sickness, but instead your loved one could wind up hurt or incarcerated behind a mental illness. A lot of research I've done that 16% to 24% of our jail population are people that are struggling with mental illness. And supporting that and going through a system, not only that has the answers, it has been a traumatic for me as a mother, as an advocate for mental illness, to watch how many people that are in jail that are struggling. Like my son has schizophrenia. And so a lot of his things that he goes through is psychosis. And it's in some instance, as it increases, sometimes it can end in increased violence, or sometimes it cannot, depend on the situation that is brought into in the home or outside population. But for me, I've tried a lot of things going to the system before it had gotten to this point where he's incarcerated. And the programs, a lot of programs are failed, impacted, and it's hard to get help for your loved ones. And so in a result, you get into a broken system. And so it winds up year and year, you're repeating, it's cycles of dealing with a person with mental illness. So I have found myself in somewhat desperate situations, looking for places, looking for proper treatment for my son, because there's not a lot out there. It depends on what community there is. And then when you do find a good program, they will tell you that there's not enough spots available for your loved one. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Not yet, Cheree.
Okay.
Something about
Okay.
the various programs that you had went through and
Okay.
the challenges,
Some of the
and
programs.
how difficult it is to get in those programs.
Yes. So some programs, because I've tried different programs. Let's say we're talking in Los Angeles County, there's programs like Exodus that have been very helpful, and different nonprofits. But when you go into the system, as far as, let's say, La Casa, different kinds of mental health systems, they will tell you, like, when, let's say that he gets on a 5150 hold, there has been an episode,
What is
police
the 5150 hold?
5150 is hold is when they put you on a psychiatric hold for you're displaying danger to self or others. And so they will put you on this hold, and you're saying that they may come into your house. Like one result of my son being on 5150, he was acting erratic, talking to himself, being violent with others, maybe pushing others, talking to the TV, doing those kind of psychotic behavior, which is psychosis. And so he's dealing with psychosis. He won't take his medication. You're trying to calm them down, but you can't get them under control. So sometimes you call in a team of experts or people to your home that they can kind of calm down that situation. And in the result of that, they would diagnose the situation or come to a determination if your son needs to be placed on a hold. Let's say if you're a mother and your kid is acting erratic and you're at home and you're trying to get him to the hospital, you go to the emergency. What can happen is they can say, well, you know what, he is acting erratic. Let's place him on a hold so that we can get him some medication, stabilize him, and what they call a baseline of mental health. And whether you think that may be normal for you, that baseline is that they're taking their medicine and they're calmed down and they're no longer a danger to yourself or others. So those are results of that. Or a police officer, a medical person can look at a person and talk to that person, ask them a series of questions, and they come to the result that they're saying, oh, he needs to be placed on a 5150 hold because he's a danger to you and maybe in danger to others. And so that's a result of them saying that they feel like hurting themselves, or they feel like they're trying to attack or hurt a loved one. And so they'll come up with that result and saying, well, let's place him on a hold so we can stabilize him and get him the proper medicine that he may need, or just a way for us to analyze what's going on with that patient. Do we need to change his medication? What is going on in his home environment that may have caused him to go into this episode of not psychosis or some kind of mental disorder at that time?
How challenging is it to get conservatorship over? I know
Well,
you're a parent,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
conservative over
Um,
children, but young adults like over 18.
Over 18, I decided to give conservatorship. Well, I talked to my doctor, and I had a team in Los Angeles that she talked to me, because what kept on happening is my son would be reoccurring me going in the hospital, and they would say, oh, there's nothing wrong with him. You can take him home. And we would go home and we would go through all these challenges, him not acting right, trying to fight me, trying to not take his medicine, uh, throwing it away, results of him just being not adhering to his mental health. And so it would go, some of the results would be days without showering, days without eating, staying in his room, and you're going in there saying, oh, you need help, let me help you, and he's resisting. Because you can see when someone is crashing, when they're dealing with mental health, and so you're trying to get them to the hospital so that they can get the proper treatment that they want. As a result, they become very agitated because they become aware of that, oh, you're trying to get me in the hospital, you're trying to lock me up. And so it becomes this kind of a battle with the person that's dealing with mental illness, because it's a name for that they don't even know that they're dealing with a mental illness, but you know by observing them that this is not their baseline when they're healthy, when their mental health is at its top. So you're trying to get them and persuade them. And so after a battle, about 3 episodes of my son being placed on a 5150, God sent an angel, that's what I call her, and it was a social worker. And she said, let's talk about getting conservatorship, because you're complaining about how they're an adult, and when you get to the hospital, they're allowing that adult that is not capable of making good judgment to say that he's okay and he doesn't need his medicine and he can go home, but he's going home with me and I'm feeling endangered. So we talked about it. And so once I started figuring it, what was going on with him, I thought it was best because it's a battle. He goes to the hospital, it's like a revolving door. I'm going to the hospital, he's telling me he's okay, he comes back, like he would be stabilized for a month, and then I'm going back and forth to the hospital. So we wind up as a team, the doctor had to make the decision. I had to speak with the doctor, and I was telling him the things that results of what I'm seeing at home, not taking a bath, not being able to take care of his own basic needs, not taking his medicine, which is causing more problems for him. I felt that I learned how to fill out my own paperwork the first time, and I went to the court, and we had a court date. It's best sometimes to have this happen when they're on a hold, because if they get out, persuading them to go to court with you to get a conservatorship is even harder. So what happens is that he was on a 5150 hold during this time, and the social worker put in for a 5152, which is, it changes. That means that they can keep them from 17 to 14 days. So during this time, we were rushing to put the paperwork in, have the doctor has to write up saying these are the things that we're observing. These are the things that we notice that this mom needs support, and he's unable to take care of himself, especially when he is manic or in a psychosis episode. So they wrote up the paper. I went to court, and he has to appear because he is an adult. And at that time, they appoint you a lawyer. And I'll never forget. And so the lawyer said, we're trying to get conservatorship over you. Would you like your mom to be over you? And he goes, no. And so she said, well, as a result, you need someone. So not only was a social worker there, but also I had his lawyer that they appointed to him that was persuading him to say, hey, you need the support or you're going to wind up in the hospital longer. And so she kind of influenced him to sign. And so that was my first conservatorship, where I got it, where I was in control of everything for him, especially when it came to his medical, taking medications. With that, it gave me the power. If they say he's ready to go home, I could tell a hospital, no, he's not. He needs this kind of medicine. And they could allow me to know what's going on medical wise. So when he went in to see a doctor, they would call me back there and talk his case over. So I would know what medication my son was on, what treatment plan he was on, so that as a parent and a conservator, I was aware what triggers, what plan the doctor was executing to help me through this with his mental illness. But each year when you're on a conservatorship, you have to renew it. And what happens there is they will allow that person to come back to court. And unfortunately, a lot of times when when it expires, my son sometimes is already have gotten in trouble or is on a 5150 hold. For years, it would just so happen every time I was time for my renewal, my son was in an institution that would support me and help me and get him to court, because I was thinking, this is going to be hard, because there had been a time when I was trying to get him to court for this conservatorship, and oh my God, he didn't want to get in a car. I don't need it, and things. So they're very argumentative because they're smarter than you. They know more about their mental health than you, but you're the observer. You're seeing the behaviors that they're displaying, and you know your loved one when you know that they need help. And so about 5 years ago, because I've been dealing with this for 10 years, I spoke in front of the court because I had been going back and forth with him with conservatorship. And I pleaded with the judge that I needed assistance and help to deal with my son that's dealing with mental illness. And I told her my story, how I go to hospitals, there's not beds. I go to hospitals, they're sending them home, and it's a revolving door. So at that time, she appointed me an attorney, our own attorney in LA. that would help me with conservatorship, making sure that we keep up with deadlines, that she talks to doctors, that she talks to different placements in case I would have to elevate care. Because with a conservatorship, if you need be, you can put them in residential cares. You can place them in places that treatment centers that will help them get better. Without that, he would have to go on his own. And a lot of times they think they're beating the illness. Nothing's wrong with them. Something's wrong with you. They, because that's the way they're coming across. So you have to explain this is best for you. And so my son I have used my conservatorship to put him away in a facility for about 6 months. And that was for him to get stabilized, for him to, because also with him, he's picked up behaviors as far as drug addiction to marijuana. It was a case of him drinking, because those are coping mechanisms when you're dealing with schizophrenia or psychosis, that you feel that marijuana is a calming agent that can help you and clear your mind. But instead, it was detrimental to him because using the marijuana along with prescription drugs for mental illness, it causes them even more to elevate into these manic behaviors. And these manic behaviors are him walking the street, talking to himself. Never in a million years would I have thought I would see my own child talking to themselves or in the street, deciding that he wanted to be homeless. And so it was very hard for me as a mother to watch these things. So I had to intervene because it was becoming detrimental for him and for myself. And it became escalated incidents more and more, that we were having incidents with police, which was scary because I wouldn't want my son, and no mother wants her son to die in the police in police custody. So that has been a very thing with me as far as calling the police when things are right, or someone's calling the police on my son that's dealing with mental illness. And this last episode was him fighting someone and hurting someone, and it escalated. The police were called and they incarcerated him for that. But in order for them, they put it as a felony. And so that felony, in order for it to get expunged, you have to get it in mental health court. So since November, which is November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, we're in July, August, about 10 months I've been fighting this case for him in Riverside, which Riverside has a 90% conviction rate on offenses. And so this new program that the governor came up with, Governor of California, is called diversion. And diversion program is that you have mental illness. You can show that you've been dealing with mental illness for years and you committed a crime, but now we're going to put you in mental health court and you're going to go in a program. And this program is that you get counseling, whether it be drug counseling, you get to speak with a counselor, they help you get housing, they talk to you, but the result of it is if you do not complete this program, they will incarcerate you back and give you your sentence, which could be 5 years or whatever that is. You will go back to your felony. But as far as if you're in the diversion program, that is expunged until you're completing the diversion program. And so, but the problem is with that we're finding out, because I have several friends that are, opening homes, that there's not enough homes for the people that will have mental illness and getting them into the diversion program. And so that is a part of the court too. That's why they're keeping them incarcerated for so long. And it's not a quick process because they need to place these people that have mental illness, and there's not enough homes in Riverside to address the needs of these individuals that are suffering from mental illness. And sometimes these crimes, we would think it's something big. It's mediocre. Like he has a felony. One felony was because during COVID, he was manic. He came up to a guy and said, "Give me your mask or I'm going to hit you." Took his mask, which, a mask was free. But they said any kind of violence that you show, that still is considered robbery. So they put him a robbery. So we're fighting two cases, unfortunately. And he was just manic at that time and dealing with his mental illness in his head and trying to, just walk in the street and talking and doing these kind of things. But nevertheless, I'm faced with my son that is incarcerated for his mental illness. And unfortunately, we go to court probably next month, which I'm going to be dealing with again, a lot of people trying to see, because they had to go in the jail and they had to do assessments. Even though I had all his records from all these years, they still have to do their own assessments and see if the program is fit for him as well. But he's on the second phase of it. So they are determining that he is fit for this diversion program, which is grateful for him, because behind his mental illness and this incident of this last time, he could do 5 to 7 years, because I've read the court documents. What's sad is that a lot of people have 3 strikes that have mental illness and no family member is there fighting for them. And so you can easily get 3 strikes based on just having mental illness. Because I've seen how easy my son could be on a 2nd strike, and then the 3rd, and then that's it. So dealing with that. And even if you do this program, he has to stay in this program in a structured environment until he gets out of that program.
What are the chances? I mean, there are a lot of people that have family members, and a lot of them just can't, for whatever reason, don't follow through with, sticking with your son. I've watched you and family members try to help Javion. And, but that's why so many people on the streets, they don't, they're adults, they won't sign up for help, but they ain't got no one to try to get them in court or get conservatorship.
Yeah, I'm applauded. Yeah, it's sad, but I'm applauded because everybody has known me for 10 years of how I fought for him, and I continue to fight, and I don't give up on him, which it's hard because people go to court and they have strangers taking care of them. The family has given up on them. But a lot of things, I had to get through NAMI and through getting my own therapy and groups and talking to groups and other professionals or people. We've become a family of, like, I met a woman recently that joined, and we talk every day because her son is going through the same thing. So during my journey, I've met several other parents that are determined to help their kids, and we become a family. And so unfortunately, the reason why we see a lot of people on the streets is because a lot of families have given up, because it is hard. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. There is times that I'm like, you cry and you say, "Oh, I want to give up," but I love my son. And when he's stable, I see how positive and right he can be with the right medication, with the right therapy, or with the right team, how he can fit in society, because there's judges and lawyers dealing with the same thing, but their parents had the money to put them in special program. One of my professors at USC, my son and his son started out at the same time in college, and he spent over, I would say, maybe $250,000 for all these special programs for his son. And because he had the money to do so, mortgaged his home. He wanted the best for his son. So we would talk often, and he calls me a lot and says, "What kind of programs, do they have for your son?" And we would just take notes. And I seen where the discrepancy is the people that have money, the people that don't have money, and what is offered to them. And so, like some of his treatment centers were in Malibu on the beach. You know, my son is, you know, around the corner in the hood in a place that is not kept up. So the difference is it does exist, and the color of skin matters as well. The discrepancy still is there for us as far as challenges getting help because of the color of our skin. And so majority of
Well, it was not because of the color of skin, it's because of white people. You know, that's like saying, the reason I'm in trouble is because I'm black. No, the reason you're in
no,
trouble
I'm
is because
saying
you're black.
the
I know what
discrepancy,
you're saying.
yeah,
I'm just putting
yeah,
my part in.
yeah, but I'm not saying it's not, I'm saying when I go to the hospital, I'm giving you an example. This is how deep this is. As my son, as an African American, I've been where it is a white male that's displaying the same behaviors as my son. And I'm in the hospital. I've watched this and observed this. And my son is showing those same behaviors. They called the police on my son. I've had it where 20 deputies have shown up at the hospital for my son, and this white male that's dealing with the same schizophrenia is throwing things, and they're dealing with him with a security guard.
Hmm.
So you mean to tell me what's the difference between my son and that's what I observe as a mother. I'm the one that's going in court and I'm watching how, oh, it's okay. We don't need that paperwork for you, John Adams, or and so happens, I'm just gonna face it. He's white. Mine is black. Oh no, I've watched the judge in San Bernardino say, you know what? Keep him in jail. But you know what? I know him. You know what, John? He doesn't have to be incarcerated. Send him home and get him the needs that he needs to be met. And
Yeah.
so I'm seeing it's not me saying it or believing it. I'm watching it as a result from being in court institutions, from being in hospitals. And I'm saying, well, my son needs help, ma'am. Can you help me? If I didn't have my conservatorship, they'll say, oh, he'll be okay. I've watched cops tell me he'll be okay. Let him walk down the street. So you can kill him? Is that what you want? Versus them going all overboard for a white male, same age, 35, and they bring him in the bag, give him water and give him a snack, and telling me chase my son down. I've been running down Sepulveda Boulevard after mine, but she's in there with hers and they're not treating them the same. So it isn't fair, but I'm just telling you what I, as a mother, dealing with an African American male that has struggled with mental illness in these hospitals, these institutions, and dealing with the police basis the color of his skin.
It's a challenge and it's a struggle, and very few mothers want to deal with it because it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. I mean, there's no instant cure. Some people bounce back, but many people just, they just wear their loved ones out from
Yeah,
house to house, family to family, and
I've tried.
you
I was the one that tried everything, and I've tried. And I have girlfriends that I have a girlfriend that's the head of a hospital, and I've used resources through these 10 years. Some of the programs are good, some of them are bad. But if I didn't even have that influence of knowing your name, your daddy was my teacher.
know,
Oh, let me hook you up.
mm,
Oh, this person, your mom, I know her. And God has been good to me
mm,
on that aspect that has opened doors for us. But I was thinking, what if I didn't have that name? What if I didn't have that? Would I get the same love and a door open for me? I don't know. But I do know what I've been walking and how the results of it. You have, and that's in every profession. And let's not, even if you put out whether there's good professions, but it is it's hard on the medical, just like my girlfriend that deals with this, she said, it's hard on me as well. We had a conversation recently how she don't have enough beds, how she feels that she could help everybody, but she can't. And then you talk about the money of how housing them, and there's not enough places, and that she wishes she could help more, but it's only the limits that she can do in your community.
Well, let me just say that mental illness is a global problem.
Yeah.
In every country, they got mental illness.
Mhm.
And they deal with it differently. Each country, each community,
That
and
is
each
true.
family. They used to hide people with symptoms and just make them go and lock them up in the bedroom when they had company.
Yeah.
Now they have treatment. But anyway, we're gonna start off with brother Mashinda and see what his take on mental health. Because he does with a lot of probation, a lot of people and things like that. Brother Mashinda, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Cheree, for that experience that you gave us in that testimony. And appreciate your courageousness, and dealing with your personal family situation, let alone just in your everyday, job life, or what you
Yeah.
do professionally, and I'm sure it has to be a challenge. And
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody on this call can relate to some degree. What you have expressed, you went in, you basically kind of broke it down. It seems pretty severe, but you haven't given up, and you're one that understands the system in
Yeah.
terms of what's fair and what's not fair. I look at it this way: whether it's mental health or medical regular health, any kind of health, as it relates to us relying on uh, the system to provide services. We're taxpayers, we pay insurance, all those kind of things. I mean, some people don't have insurance and some people don't pay taxes. But as a whole, what I've experienced is that, it's never in my lifetime. And like, Professor Ross said, there are some positive stories out there. There have been people that come back. We can talk about some positive stories, but overall, I think the bad stories far outweigh the good stories due to the fact that the structure of the system, we talk about the system. Some people say, oh, those are conspiracy theories. And what is the system? Well, it's systemic, it's structural. And so, what I just described as, whether you have benefits that pay insurance for these services, or you being a taxpayer and relying on the services of the county or the state, well, we have elected officials who are in place who decides to cut up the pie as they see fit.
Yeah.
Therefore, the ones that are in place, in many instances, are not in favor of mental health. We know the whole story about Ronald Reagan. They say he opened up the doors and kicked everybody out of a lot of
Yeah.
the mental
Yeah.
health institutions back in
Mhm.
the day. We haven't recovered from that. And then not only are we dealing with mental health issues, there's sub situations, the crack cocaine epidemic, the different drug epidemics that come into our societies. And so a lot of times we don't know the difference between a drug addiction and just plain old mental health. One may say, well, drug addiction is mental health issue, of course. But what I'm saying, in your case, someone who's suffering from schizophrenia, things like that. I know a couple of folks that are dear to me that are not on any drugs, but they have been uh, told, or they like to draw the conclusion, oh, they're just on drugs. There are plenty of people that are not really drug addicts, but they
Mhm.
may be exhibiting certain,
Right.
behaviors. And a lot of times, society, the police, whoever, oh, he's on dope, let's lock him up. Like, let's criminalize the situation. When in
Mhm.
fact, there's not any drugs in their system. I'm talking about street drugs or that type of thing. So I think there's not only it's a gross misdiagnosis of of these behaviors, but it's intentional that there's an intentional lack of concern and disregard for people with mental health issues. I worked in probation.
You cut yourself off, Mashinda. You put on mute. You're on mute, Mashinda. Yeah, you
On
back.
these issues every day. I work in education. I take on these issues every day where there are students. We do have a LCSW that they've installed who's really concerned about mental health. And so she's been able to try to help certain students that are on the community college campus. And she comes on the campus probably once a week and has appointments. So I mean, there should be a center there with multiple, because this is the community coming to the school. So all in all I'm saying is that there's minimal uh, effort put into the plight of the mental health of people with mental health issues, on all levels, in education, criminal justice, all the systems. It's like I say, it's a gross disregard in that. So I applaud you for your 10 years of dealing with your personal situation or more, and other dealing with other things, and because uh, no one's trying to find a cure. No one's trying to, it's not even about that. The pharmaceutical companies are looking for the next medicine to sedate somebody. And instead, nobody's putting money into research to actually try to resolve some of these issues or try to, put a lid on things, So anyway, you in competition with a whole lot. So like I say, don't give up the race, keep running. And thank you for coming on.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, Mashinda. How's Detroit with mental health and mental displays on the street? You're on mute. You're on mute.
I continue to be on mute.
All right, there it is.
Okay. My brothers and sister, thank you so much. You were very detailed in what you were saying, and yes, we are in touch with mental health. In 1986, near the end of 87, I left California because I had to come home. My brother diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Oh my God.
My daddy, early stages of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
My aunt sent for me, and she was trying to tell me over the phone. Well, we had the machines then, and you leave a message, or when I can catch you, I can catch you. So she sent my father and my brother to me. And I look in my brother's eyes and I talk to him, and he's not logical in some of the things he's saying. And I talk to my daddy, and he says, "Oh, nothing's wrong with that boy. He gonna be all right. He need a little rest. He's just fine." I knew everything was all wrong. My brother was talking about communicating with the authorities on looking at license plates and hearing messages through the radio. And it just broke my heart.
Yeah.
When I finally got home, I closed all my business out on the West Coast, sold all my stuff, and went home. I knew when you know it, you know it. Oldest child, my little brother, my daddy. Mama passed right after I graduated high school. My sister getting ready to complete high school, and she matriculated to Long Beach State and eventually got her undergraduate degree. It was on me. And when I got home and I went out to see my brother. He was out in Novi, Michigan. He was being held by the state because of his behavior. And I went to visit him, and I saw him through a glass, a little small block, maybe about 14 inches by 6 inches piece of glass and a steel door. And all these young black men, faces pressed up against the glass.
Yeah.
Looking. And my brother, I got conservatorship with my brother and my father.
Yeah.
So when dealing with him and getting to the point sometimes in the house where he was so out of control, and I hate to say it, I called the police.
Yeah. Yeah.
They handcuffed him like
Yeah.
a criminal.
Yeah.
Like a criminal.
Been there. Been there.
I'm living with that now.
Yeah. It's a hurtful feeling. Yeah.
And take him to these institutions. Thank God that my father had insurance, because Blanchard, which was the governor, threw thousands of people out on the street and took away the funding for the mental health.
Yes.
In the state of Michigan. But my daddy had retired on disability with the city of Detroit, Parks and Recreation, district supervisor, always his whole life committed to his community. So it paid off. We had the insurance to deal with that. So with that, I just want to say I know about mental health. And I was in control of his money and dealing with him, and this crack shit was all out there. And I was dealing with him, trying to get him away from that. He was determined to get his hand on some money because he had this money.
Yeah.
So that he can, I went through the stage where I felt like I need to have my own. And I understood it with him, but he wasn't ready. He wanted his own apartment, and he wanted to be in an apartment with a young man who he was in a facility with.
Yes. Been there.
And I did not believe that was his best route.
Yeah, me either, but you
So
tried. Yeah.
I made sure that he had his toiletries, his transportation, his smokes, money in his pocket so he can have and feel some sort of independence. Food in his belly, a house over a roof over his head. But he was determined. Sometimes he would leave the house and he would go to be with this guy. Want to argue with this money, and at that time I went and talked to my family, and I said I'm tired of arguing with him with this money.
Yeah.
So my family all the elders got together and were putting a plan together on how they were going to handle his money. So that would cut down on some of the conflict between he and I. I'm responsible for him and this house and everything else, but I don't need to be responsible for the money. It wasn't that important for me. Let some other people deal with that who he loved and trusts. I'm his brother. We sibling rival, even though I'm his big brother. But anyway, I ended up burying him with the money we was arguing about. As he went to be over there with the nigga that he wanted to live with, and somebody came with a vendetta. And he would sleep on the couch and woke up and somebody shot him in his chest because he moved. There wasn't no electricity in the place. It was just the lights from the alley shining through. And they was in there gambling. And it was a vendetta thing, and some niggas came in there, and he was on the couch, And when he woke up to what was going on, the guy that was one of the trigger guys shot him in the chest with a shot. I know something about that.
Mhm.
My baby boy grow up and he always had some problem with his guts. Now, you know, this runs in my family. We had some type of mental illness with several members in my family. This is a genetic deal also. This is something that has been passed now. My baby boy has anxiety attacks. Certain things trigger him. Stress. Every time his finals or his midterms came up, he undergraduate in Mississippi State, where he got his undergraduate, he would get sick, even hospitalized, and they have to make conditions for him to go ahead and finish his finals and stuff like that. And trying to find the triggers and give him tools to deal with the triggers so that he won't go into this anxiety, which causes him to lose weight. He's as big as a pencil, be able to hold food down in his stomach. Mental illness is real in my life and in my family.
Praying for you. Mhm.
10 years ago,
That's it.
Mhm.
I'm on a job and I'm in a confined space and somebody called my name and I try and turn around to see them and I can't see them and I try and get up on my knees and get back to them and something came in on me that was a rush. They caused me to panic and I backed my way out of that chase, which was about 30 feet. And even when I got into the basement, I had to run up out in the alley to get some air because of the claustrophobia. So I know what you talk about, sister.
Yes.
It's a lifelong battle with me for the loved ones in my life.
Yeah.
And I come in my old age, and now here I am faced with some shit like this.
Yeah.
That's what I got to say. Thank you.
Amen. Deep, deep. Cheree, you there?
Yes, yes,
Is
I'm
that your
here.
how's mental health in New York and where you been traveling and everything?
Say that again, brother. I didn't get that.
How you respond to mental? I mean, what's your observation about mental health?
Oh, wow. You know, I have to condense everything down to my people, Black people. As the sister was saying, her son, schizophrenic, in an institution, the white person there, schizophrenic, displaying the same thing but getting a different treatment. We have to understand that when we're talking about mental health, the mental has always been healthy. What we're experiencing now is a group of modern sciences that were invented as a tool by the colonialists and imperialists to control the Aboriginal and indigenous people of the planet. They were found living in a balanced society, in a society that was functional and not dysfunctional. So when we speak about mental illness, we're talking about a dysfunctional condition. I have 6 daughters and 2 sons. I raised all of them in a very stable environment. None of them were had any issues with mental health or physical health throughout their entire life. They all grew and became adults under my watch, under my care, and their mother's care. And one of my daughters developed a mental illness, which is the bipolar business like that. She went through a rough divorce. You know, a lot of the things that we're calling mental illness is not really mental illness, it's really society illness. And when we live in a society that breeds certain things, and we are a people that came up out of a horrific enslavement and oppression and degradation and destruction, the whole medical association, the medical system here in America was orchestrated and put together by experimentation on our people. And so we never received any kind of therapy. We never received any kind of righting of that egregious wrong. You know, nothing was done. So we are the offsprings of those who actually triumphed and victorious. We're just at the next level of our liberation. Mental illness, as I said, is one of the modern sciences. It was actually came into existence in the 19th century, along with other sciences such as sociology and theocracy and all of these different sciences that actually talks about, you know, psychology is one of them, 1879. And, you know, you have like bacteriology, biochemistry, biology, botany, ecology, astrology, astrobiology, and many other sciences. But all these sciences were created or invented to stop the indigenous people of the planet from coming forward into themselves again. We're dealing with that. And that's what
You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that we need to create for ourselves another, we need to create for ourselves our own. This is where we're, as a people, as Black people, because so much is happening right now. They got Black people so discombobulated. We don't even, a lot of us are joining with the dysfunctional system. You know, we don't even know what a woman is anymore, what a man is anymore. We have our children transitioning into places, into spaces of mental and physical dysfunction that, you know, and there's nothing. We have none of our leaders in high places are doing anything and now are now addressing us directly. You know, so this is why mental illness exists. We have to understand what causes that. And it's expectation. When we have expectations and we get caught up in this system and then we experience disappointment, we marry somebody that we had this whole high hopes for, and that person turns out to be illegitimate. But then what makes it mental illness is when you look at the people that were telling you, hey, come, let me show you, let me show you how, and you reject that. And then you find yourself now it's too much for you. Then you get tricked. And it's all the things that it's the world that is mentally ill. And it's the people in it, and it's up to us to stand up and acknowledge that we have a situation that only we can solve. We have enough psychiatrists. We have enough people that's trained to handle our mental illness. Let us organize ourselves as a people. Let us go into our communities. Let those of us who are successful financially fund our situation. Don't rely on the government all the time. And for the political figures, whether they're Black or white or whatever they are, don't rely on them no more like that. We have to have faith and trust in ourselves that if we can survive slavery, then we can survive this, what we're going through right now, because we are the descendants of those who are to overcome and to the next generation what it is to be Black. Nobody cares about us. Nobody is going to do anything for us. We must do for ourselves, and we must gather our people. Our professionals need to wake up and stop intellectualizing and use their intelligence and come and rescue their people. Put your craft, put all your education to work and come into the Black community. Begin to build our own clinics, begin to build our own schools to educate our children. No longer do we need to continue to protest and beg these people to correct what they have done to us. We need to begin that process ourselves. We have our righteous ancestors with us. They walk with us every step of the way. And we have our Creator God who lives within us. And we are confident in the victory of good over evil. So, my sister, I know the struggle is hard. It's rough. It was rough for me and my daughter when I went down there to look about her. And, you know, she shunned me because her mentor wasn't right.
Yeah.
And went off with strangers and was in the clutches of the police officers.
Yeah.
You know, so I know what it is. I have another daughter that gave up the spirit at 24 years old. You know, involved with dysfunctional people in a dysfunctional system, in a dysfunctional society. I raised every one of my children as ordered. They never fractured a bone, scraped an arm, anything. And I homeschooled them. But when they went out into the world as independent men and women, you understand, and they influenced by peers and their friends, and they formed new allies. And these allies were not raised like they were. So we have a problem within the Black community. We have a problem in the Black community. We need to raise our daughters with dignity. We need to raise our sons with dignity. We need to have that inside of our own neighborhoods and communities, so that when my daughter or my son seeks a spouse, they're not guessing. It's not a Las Vegas throw of a dice on a crap table. The young man is raised up with the right mind, and the young woman is raised up with the right mind, and they find each other. And we need to create those communities across the country to address this mental illness as well as other illnesses. Because in the medical field, they have already connected and came to the conclusion that the basic fundamental foundation of all illnesses on the physical plane stems from the mental illness of people. So it's been from a psychological standpoint. Binge eaters, psychological. You know, people, and then we have to consider the food that are being fed to us by the oppressor. We trust them too much. We trust Publix. We trust Kroger's. We trust Food Lion. We trust all of these entities to provide our food. What about the Black farmers? What role are they playing in the Black community in providing food for the Black people? Why is the Black communities communicating with the Black farmers? So we need to understand the importance of food, how it connects to the brain. And we got to understand what is the mind and how it operates. So these are some of the things we need to address. These are some of the things I do address. You know, I'm in constant contemplation to understand this thing called the mind and this thing called the brain, and what is their relationship and how do they connect. This thing called intelligence and this thing called intellect. What is the difference between the two, and how do we bridge, and which one is most important? What is intuition and how does that work? Because all of these things come together to make a whole human being that's functional. And so we have to do that. You know, basically that's my response. You know, we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to struggle, but understand that mental illness is a concoction. Yes, we can see it. We see the effects. The effects are real, but it's something that we can cure. we can change that. But we have to change it by thinking differently. And we have to change it by having control over our communities, our neighborhoods. And we have to begin a different form of thinking. A new faculty of thinking is absolutely, unequivocally necessary. Absolutely. Without that, nothing is going to work, whether it's mental illness or any other type of thing. We have to have a new faculty of thinking, a new format. We have to start from the very beginning, from the core of ourselves. We are a righteous people. We are a good people. We are an innovative people. And we have to begin to nurture that again in our children. We have to think in terms of generations and stop thinking about the future. Think in terms of generations. We are a generational people. And that's what they know. So peace and love. Thanks again. You know, and it's a beautiful topic. We need to talk more about mental illness, you know.
All right, we will. Rashaki, you have anything?
Yes, I just want to say a few things. Dr. Cheree, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your experience. And it's something that needs to be discussed. And we need brave people like yourself. Brother Ahi sharing his story. Brother Cheree sharing his story. Brother Mashinda providing us with his thoughts. Professor Rahh even making this happen. It is a form of therapy. We could look at that, how this went this evening. Definitely therapeutic. Of course, I have experienced many mental illness type situations throughout my life, dealing with my family and myself. And I've studied things that have happened. And what Brother Cheree is saying is really I think at the crux of what's going on as far as the type of system we're in, what we've been through as people, and the things that we need to do. It's personally, I could say this. If people are able to dismantle their mental value system that was inherited in this system, I think that is a start. I mean, everybody has their own individual challenges. And I know that we have to come up with strategies, because I have to come up with strategies on a consistent basis just to be able to do the things that I'm doing today. And so we definitely, as a unit of consciousness, need to part ways with the value system that we've inherited through our travels through this wicked system that we live in. And when we able to get rid of some of these tenets, I think that kind of helps to let us see a little bit more clear than what we have been seeing. When you don't take on the personality of your oppressor, Professor Rahh, don't let your oppressors be your teacher. That is so important. We have to come from under the tutelage of an oppressive system that we're in. So I appreciate all the words spoken this evening and the sharing of experiences, because it's a reality, and things do need to change, and things can change, because if you take a look at yourself and you're able to overcome some of the challenges you overcame and made some changes, that means other people can too. We could share, we could, talk, and then maybe somebody can benefit from what we're saying, and they should, if they take out the time to seek out higher consciousness and understanding. Thank you, everyone.
All right, but just in closing, I just want to say, mental illness is a complex issue, as Dr. Cheree was saying. Some is maybe inherited. Some may be oppression, delusions, disappointments, and setbacks. But there are also psychiatric issues. There's a difference between psychological issue and a psychiatric issue. And that's why a psychiatrist is different from a psychologist. And so therefore, it's very complex. There's no simple answer. Each and every one of you gave testimony about, the challenges you go through, but there are support systems for people that are caretakers or loved ones that have mental illness. And they got groups that would help you. Their experiences, you share yours, as well, giving you comfort and a better understanding of what you're up against. Whether it's psychological or psychiatric, it's a long ways for people to come back. You understand, and get their lights turned back on in their mind. And it's a beautiful thing when you have loved ones that stick with you no matter what, as Cheree has done and family members have done, because that's my grandson she's talking about. And he was beautiful. I mean, all the way up to high school, you could, there was no, I mean, he's a star basketball player. He was, I mean, and then all of a sudden it just, traumatic or whatever.
Yeah.
I got a granddaughter, beautiful. You understand? But all of a sudden, now we don't know where it come from, how they change like that. But some people just don't have the stamina, the resources, the temperament, or the understanding that it's an illness. You can't just say they're crazy. It's an illness. They need help. The challenge for Black people is that you're going through racial discrimination on top of the mental health. For the person seeking to get you help and for you who need the help. And so therefore the struggle is that, trying to bring attention to it and get them to do the research and provide the facilities. Many of the people that are homeless are suffering from mental illness. Many of the people that's in jail are suffering from mental illness. And because they don't mean that much to the society of capitalism, greed, envy, racism, and sexism, and they don't fit in, can't escape those things, it creates a lot of problems. So I'm
I just want to share one more thing that's very important.
Okay, go ahead. Wait, Cheree.
We need
do that and make your closing statement, then Rashaki gonna take us on home. All
okay. Right. We need to make the clear between 18 and 24, this new thing with marijuana. Majority of the women that I'm coming in contact that are mothers, their sons, that marijuana, even though is legalized, is a gateway drug to mental illness. If there's any stem of mental illness within your family or anything, that brings that forth. And so I'm starting to see a lot of correlations that the marijuana usage and the mental illness of these young guys that are losing their minds behind, I don't know, it's not as pure like back in the day where it's just plants. I don't know, it's the way they process it, what's going in it, but where they think it's okay, it's not okay, because it's causing a lot of our kids to lose their mind as far as struggling with mental illness at a high rate. And so a lot of people are starting to do research on that, and the psychiatrists, and they're making a lot of correlations with that. So we do need to be there as aware of that as African Americans. They just think marijuana is like cigarettes now, but there is effects of it, just like crack had effects on the community. This obsess of weed, edibles, and all that is affecting our community. So we need to put a light on that as well when we talk about that. And I just want to thank you all I share my story with no guilt, no shame, because I know that through my testimony, someone else can be healed. Through my testimony of hearing what I went through, and it's therapy for me. and it makes me aware of what's happening in my life. So wherever I'm asked to speak on it, I am willing to, and I look forward to working with you in the future and coming back and speaking about certain things that I'm doing in the community as far as dealing with a son that's dealing, because it started out as my son being bipolar, and then it escalated. Well, maybe it's schizophrenia because he kept on. Then we have to go into, is that really what he has? You know, and then on top of that, a drug addiction. So you never know. So I just want to thank you all for allowing me to share my story with you.
All right, then, Rashaki.
All right.
Tomorrow night.
Appreciate you, Dr. Cheree. Thank you for attending this evening and bringing this topic to us. Tomorrow we have Asa Allah. He came on about a few months ago and he's back. And he's a food nutritional researcher. And the topic is killing our families in the name of love. And as you can see, this is our homepage of our website. And this is how you could join the podcast if you like. So Professor Rahh, do we have anything for Tuesday of next week?
You know, I got to get back into the struggle. I mean, with camera running and the upswell of Black men and women coming together to raise that kind of money, we got to have a serious discussion about what we're going through right now as a people and the challenges we have, even with elected officials that are representing the Democratic Party, not Black people. But Black people vote for them, and I'm gonna vote for, Black no matter what. That's me. But I got to get a better understanding, and we're gonna deal with because it's election season, and we're gonna deal with Kamala Harris as the vice president next Tuesday. And we're going to have a lively discussion. And I ran across a couple brothers, a brother and a sister. They said they voted. One said, did a whole lecture on why you shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris. And then she said, but I don't vote because of my religion. But she don't want nobody else to vote for him. And then this other brother, he said he loved Trump because he's the economic man. He knows business. He knows money. Boy, I said, man, bankrupt how many times? His daddy left him $400 million and you thought he knows money. I mean, he knows how to promote himself. But anyway, we'll talk about that next week. All right. It'll be a news forum.
That's a Rahh.
Thanks for everything,
Okay.
darling.
I
I forgot to say she's also the director of the new school. Tell them about the new school you're trying to open up, Cheree.
Along with my brother, Little Man, we are opening the Compton Legacy Early Learning Academy. So we're almost open. And so pretty soon we'll be opening for 2 through 5. We're bringing technology and also we're looking to help the community and giving a positive resources to parents. And I'm looking forward to being in Compton again. So pray for us as we take this journey.
That's
All
it.
right. Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
All right.
We have a school that we could look to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna take our pause. Each one teach one in Conscious Corner. Everybody have a great evening.
All right.